Okay guys, so bar the rewiring work, what we've done so far with our general normal setup is remove the strings and give our base a good clean. Now it comes the important part of installing the new strings. Now more so than taking the strings off, this has some best practice to do, and I really advise that you follow this. Now people have different ways that they want to go about this and different ways that they string up their bases. But this is the method that I've used, and I very, very rarely have any problems with this. So these are the strings that we're going to be installing today. In no way endorsing these because I haven't even tried them yet, but I've heard good things about them, so we're going to give them a go. Now most strings now have some sort of colour coding to them. They may come in individual wrapping, but more likely they're going to come in a sort of plastic sealed bag inside the packaging. In this case, we've got colour coding on the ball ends of the strings, just so we get them right, but ultimately you should be able to pick out which is the thickest through to the thinnest, so we'll work with that. I normally work from the thickest through to the thinnest, so the bottom to the top, but there's no real reason to work in that direction, just my personal preference. So for my base, stringing up through the rear of the base, obviously through the back of the bridge if that's what you do. Make sure you pull it through until the ball end is securely secured on the bridge piece there. Now you're going to have quite a bit of curve over the saddle at the moment. That'll resolve in a moment, but just basically make sure that you've got the right string in the right place and pull it taut up towards the neck. Now what I do here is normally hold that in place in the nut and measure out approximately 2 tuning pegs further on and give the string a bit of a bend. Just like that. So you end up with a kink in the string like that. Now, you don't want the whole string wrapped around the tuning peg because there's normally way too much string to actually fit in there, and you'll just end up with excess windings that you don't need. So the best thing to do is to trim the string down a little bit. But the reason I put the kink in there is one, to mark out where I want to cut it, but B, also to avoid the string unraveling after I've cut it. Now this probably doesn't happen too much nowadays. It happened with years ago with some of the cheaper string brands, but I like to do that just as a fail-safe. So I normally take the string just where I've kinked it and just cut just after that kink. So you end up with just a little tiny kink on there. Now, depending on your base, they normally have either a hole or a slot down the middle of the tuning peg. Now I like to feed that end of that string down into that hole so that it slots into place at the bottom of that little section there. Now I'm going to move forward a little bit here just so you can see. So that's the string poking out at the top of the tuning peg. Now I like to wind it round, and I can normally have enough give that I can wind that round the tuning peg once. Hook it round there, and then this length of string you want to hook underneath that first turn. Now the idea here is ideally that as you wind the string up, the windings go down the tuning peg rather than up. That'll give you a nice clear angle across the nut here, means that your strings won't slip out at all. Now ignoring that end at the moment, we'll concentrate on this end, maintain tension on here and hold it in place by the nut, not necessarily in the nut but by it, and just tune this up, making sure that those windings go down the tuning peg rather than going up. You may need to readjust them as you go, but if you cut it off at about that length, then they'll normally work their way down, and I just do that just until I just need to shift that a little bit. You can do that just until you can feel that the tension has been taken. Now this is just pulling its way through the bridge, and there we go. So that's just, it's very low at the moment, but that's just enough to get a tension into the string. Now at this stage, while it's quite loose, it's worth adjusting on the bridge so it's in the right position. So at the moment, that's roughly right. I'm just going to slacken that off and move it one notch on the bridge saddle up. And that is going to be roughly in the middle of the pole pieces and lined up on the edge of the neck. Now I don't need to worry about tuning that up at the moment, but the next stage is to get the rest of the strings on and to that stage where they've got some tension in them, but not up to tune at the moment. So I'm going to get through and do the other strings now. Okay, so we've got the strings on there. There's a bit of tension in them. They're approximately in the right position on the bridge here. Actually, that one needs to just come over a bit. We've changed a lot today on the bass, so it will take a little bit of time to get this all properly set up, but rushing through today. So now I want to get these strings up to tension and up to tune, and what I need to get is my tuner. So off screen I've got the tuner. I can't shift things around enough to bring that on screen enough, but what we want to do now is just bring that roughly up to pitch. This is about the point that the cat normally joins me. So they're roughly in tune there. Now strings, when you first put them on, are very, very flexible. They're very bendy and they've got a lot of give in them. So what you're going to do is just grab each string and give it a real tug. They're very forgiving at this stage. So just give them all a good stretch out. Slap if you want to. Now, most of them will now maintain a bit more in the way of tuning. That's actually not too far off. So a couple of times around that, and you should be. Sometimes tuners struggle with the low E, especially with fresh strings when they're very bright. So playing the 12th fret harmonic can sometimes help with that. Hi there. But as long as they're roughly in tune, they will take a day or so to be really properly stretched in. Cats really love strings as you're changing them over, so I'm surprised these turn up this late in the day. But yeah, just make sure that they're stretched in and you can keep them roughly in tune. Play around, do a bit of slap bass, whatever you want to do, just make sure that they're in position. And that's roughly in place. Now what I like to do is just give a gentle press over the bridge saddles. Don't really push it down because you don't want a kink to be in there. You just want that connection to the bridge to be nice and firm and solid. And just make sure that that's then still tuned up. And there, where your strings are set, that's pretty good. If your bass has been previously set up, that should be pretty much the point where everything's in tune, you're all good to go. The next section will be setting up the intonation, and hello boy, go on. And then you will be set to go.